everyone. Welcome back to People Jew Want to Know podcast. Today, I'm bringing on a guest that's near and dear to my heart, Jamie Diamond. Jamie and I met when I was just 12 years old at my Jewish summer camp, Herzl. Jamie was a staff there when I was a camper, and although at the time she seemed so much older to me, I realize now that she actually wasn't at all. We've known each other for essentially 15 years now, and our paths have crossed many times since Jewish sleepaway camp. I feel a very, very close connection to Jamie, so it's so cool to share that part of my life with all of you. So who is Jamie Diamond? Jamie Diamond has dedicated her career to helping others find the joy in Judaism. She earned a master's in Jewish education from the Jewish Theological Seminary, and she has spent 13 years as a full-time Jewish educator. For the past 8 years, she has been the director of Young Family Education and the director of Camp Keshet at Park Avenue Synagogue in Manhattan. She also served as the director of Jewish and Israel Education for Herzl Camp in Webster, Wisconsin, and the director of Curriculum and Professional Development at Temple Israel in Minneapolis, Minnesota. When I had moved to New York City after college, Jamie reached out to me and offered me a role to teach Hebrew school at Park Avenue Synagogue. She brought it up so casually, like, hey, it's an easy gig on the side if you want to make some extra money. And at the time, I was living on the Upper West Side with 2 other girls in a tiny apartment on $60,000 a year with my first job out of school. So making extra money on the weekend actually seemed really nice, and Park Avenue Synagogue paid really well. I was very happy to do it. I did not realize, however, how life-changing of an experience this would be for me because I fell in love with teaching kids. I could tell I was good at my job, my classes were fun, and the students really liked me. After that, I actually ended up teaching for 2 years at Society Hill Synagogue as a primary Hebrew school teacher. At Park Avenue, I had someone co-teach with me, but in Philly, I was the only teacher in class and wrote my own lesson plans. We talk about this toward the end of the episode, but I want to reiterate here. Teaching kids, especially the history of the Torah and the Jewish people, is a huge passion for me, and I have to thank Jamie Diamond for that entirely because she single-handedly introduced that into my life. I wouldn't have had this immense privilege without her nudging me to take it on. So the reason I brought on Jamie is because she has this amazing new passion project called Hebrew Name Help. It's a service that helps people find the perfect Hebrew name, and I'm not sure if you all knew this, but I don't have a Hebrew name. So I figured now's a good time to get one, and there's no better person I would trust with something like this than Jamie. Apart from evaluating a couple of name options in this episode, we cover a few things like the power of names in general and the state of the Jewish people in the US right now. Felt like I was talking to family in this episode, which is really sweet, and I'm glad I get to share it with you. With that said, please enjoy this episode. Hey, Jamie, thank you so much for joining me on People Jew Want to Know podcast. How are you?
I'm great. It's such an honor to be here. I'm like in disbelief that I get to talk with you this evening.
It's a huge privilege to have you on, and I'm so excited for this conversation. I'm not giving any spoilers on the episode, but I will ask you my first question. Tell us about yourself. What do you do, and how did you get there?
I'm a Jewish educator. I've worked as a Jewish educator my entire adult career. How I got here, it's such a good question. I always say, like, I don't think anybody who knew me growing up would like clutch their chest in shock at me becoming a Jewish educator. I went to Jewish day school. I was very involved at Herzl Camp growing up. I was in USY and BBYO, and it just was a really good fit for me to combine my passion of working with children and my love for Judaism into a career. Speaking of children, you might hear my children who are still awake this evening in the background.
No worries. That's great. And tell me a little bit more about this new project you're pursuing, Hebrew Name Help. How did you think to start it, and how has it been going?
It's a passion project of mine. I'm really excited about it. For years, I joke, like, as a Jewish educator, I'm like the go-to friend when my friends get pregnant of Hebrew Name Help. It's kind of where the name for the company came from. Friends come to me all the time asking for help coming up with like the perfect Hebrew name. And through my job currently at Park Avenue Synagogue, I work with a lot of young families, and I've had the privilege and honor of helping a lot of them choose Hebrew names as well. So over the years, it's something I've always enjoyed doing, happy to help people with. It's something I have found that I have a knack for. And honestly, post October 7th, I was looking for something to add a little more Jewish joy in both into my life and to the life of other people. So I went ahead and took the plunge to see if this was something that people would respond to. And it really does seem like people are excited about it. And, names are so interesting, especially Hebrew names. We call it a Hebrew name, but what I have found really is it's more of a Jewish name, because Hebrew is one outlet that people can use to come up with their name. Also, Yiddish names are very popular. There's Ladino. People find their connections to their Judaism and their Jewish or Hebrew names through different things and different people they want to be named for. So it isn't really one size fits all. So helping people try to find what they connect to in terms of the naming process is something that really always spoke to me, and helping people to, work through the ins and outs of where they fit Jewishly. Do they want something that's more modern? Does biblical names speak to them? Do they want a name after somebody that was meaningful to them? Do they want to give a name as more of a blessing, right? So my Hebrew name is Yedida. It means friend. And it blows my mind sometimes, because of the value of friendship to me. It's the second to none, right? I hold my friends as very close and dear to me. I pride myself on being a good friend. But as a baby, when I was given that name, who's to know how it's going to end up? So I just think that piece of it is really amazing and special as well. And, names, it's so interesting. When you think about, the Hebrew word for name is Shem, and the Hebrew word for soul is Neshama. The two middle letters of Neshama are Shin and Mem, which spells Shem, which is name. So within the soul, you have the word name. They're inextricably linked, right? So it's what is this person going to grow up to be? Not everyone gets a Hebrew name when they're born, especially female babies. A lot aren't. So it's a nice opportunity to find where they connect, what kind of person they are, what kind of person they hope to be. And I think that the connection between name and soul, there's really something very special there.
And it's tough too, because I feel like when you're given a name by your parents, you don't have the difficulty of having to choose or have to understand, what do I think represents me or what embodies me? Someone else does it for you, and then you kind of live up to your name, sort of speak. But there's a lot, I wouldn't know where to begin. I don't have a Hebrew name, as you know, which is part of the reason we're doing this episode, for me to get one. But I wouldn't know how to qualify myself, because I don't think I have an impartial view on who I am as a person. Whereas your parents, they know you best in some sense. So even when you're born and they pick a name for you, it almost feels like they're laying a foundation for you. For example, you have two daughters and you feel very much that their names fit them, right?
I do. I really feel like they're growing into the names that we've given them, which almost every day blows my mind. My older daughter's Hebrew name is Rina Galit. Rina meaning joy and Galit meaning little wave. Now I would say little wave is an understatement. She's like a tidal wave of joy. And I know you've seen pictures and videos of her, and this child is the most joyful little girl. And I guess it was as much of a wish for her as just we wanted to name her also after people that meant a lot to us. So it's just beautiful to watch her grow up with that. And our younger daughter's Hebrew name is Orly Mayan. Orly meaning my light, and Mayan is a wellspring, so a wellspring of light. And she's the happiest little girl. And she brings joy to our lives, and she's really, really joyful. So it's amazing.
One thing I wanted to ask you about that I realized I don't really know the answer to, the question is, why is it so common for Jewish people to name their children after ancestors or someone in their family tree? For example, my name, Margarita, is my great-grandmother's name, who is Rita or Margarita, but her Hebrew name was Riva. And so they, I guess, modernized it by changing it to Rita so that she wouldn't have to go by her Hebrew name in the Soviet Union. But I realized I don't actually know why so often we name children after our ancestors.
Well, it's actually really interesting. It's an Ashkenazic tradition, right? So Jews from Eastern Europe traditionally name their children after deceased relatives who they want to honor. And in the Sephardic community, they name their children after living relatives, which Ashkenazi Jews definitely do not do and find super interesting. But those are that's kind of the difference in the trends. And I don't think it's a uniquely Jewish thing to do, right? You see John Joseph III, right? Like it's not like a uniquely Jewish thing to name after like a lineage of people. But I do think there's something to be said about being connected to our past in order to be able to create this like future of Jewish continuity that is really important, to the Jewish people. It always really has been, especially post-Holocaust with Eastern European Jews. I think, again, another like resurgence post-October 7th. I think that people really feel strongly about being connected to our past in order to pave a way for our future.
And why do you think it's important that all Jewish people have a Hebrew name? What do you think it represents to have a Hebrew name?
I mean, for me, it's always like you will always fit in as part of a community. I think there's the piece about like wherever you go, there's always someone Jewish. I'm sure like the song. To me, it's like the same thing. If you walk into a synagogue, there's just certain things that no matter where you are in the world, that it helps you make you feel connected. And I think having a Hebrew name, a Jewish name, is just one of those things. And I think for some people, it's an entry point for their Judaism, right? Like, who am I connected to? Where did I come from? What were my parents' wishes for me? And I like to call them Jew wishes because that's what it is. This is like the hopes and dreams that the parents want their children to have, or the traits, naming for someone. They want to give you the traits of this Jewish role model for them that they want you to carry on. So a lot of the times I'll talk to parents and I'll ask them, like, if they're having a hard time, like you said, of like where to even begin, I'll ask them, like, what are your Jew wishes for your children?
Yeah. And I guess on that note, I wanted to ask you, so Jamie has this really buttoned up process for helping someone come up with a Hebrew name. There's a questionnaire that you fill out with any pertinent information. For example, do you want your name to kind of sound like your, what is it? American's the wrong word.
I always say secular.
Your secular name?
I always say secular name.
And are there any relatives that we should be aware of when picking a name? Are there any names that you want to avoid altogether? So I had filled out this form in hopes of getting a Hebrew name. And as I alluded, I feel a lot of pressure because I just like, I don't know. I don't know what would describe me. I don't feel like I'm a good judge of my own character in that sense. So when I filled out the form, I kind of said, Jamie, you know me really well since I was a stinky little teenager. So whatever you think makes sense with a certain amount of guardrails, you let me know. So on that note, I wanted to ask, what do you think is a good name for me?
Try to get Margarita a Hebrew name.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. Like, I don't have, a very common name. It's already a big personality name. So trying to come up with another name that goes with Margarita, I just can't imagine myself being named anything else. I have such a strong attachment to my name.
I think that that's huge. I also think it is hard as an adult. And while I would say the main group of people that come to me looking for help finding a Hebrew name are parents looking for children, I've certainly helped people who are, converting to Judaism. Last week, I helped a mom come up with Hebrew names for her daughter who's having her bat mitzvah next year. So it's certainly not only for babies, but it's much more interesting, especially on my end, to come up with the Hebrew name for an adult. And that being said, I really wanted to take into account, have some sort of connection to your secular name, because I know how big of a part of your personality having that big name has always been. So I didn't want to lose that piece of it. And I know you mentioned in your questionnaire that you're named for your great grandmother, but we didn't want to use her Hebrew name directly, as you weren't so interested in like a matriarchal Hebrew name, but you were open to modern or biblical or even Yiddish, leaving it kind of open. So I really wanted to provide you names kind of that started with Mem and Resh, the M sound and the R sound, kind of playing off of Margarita or Rita. And then I have like a curveball at the end, which I happen to really like, but we'll see what you think about it.
Perfect.
So I have several options. We'll go through them and you can kind of react and tell me what you think. And I'll kind of suggest based off of your initial reactions to see which one to go with next. So the first one I think would be a great fit is Meirav. It means abundant. This is a great option, not only with the letter match, but also as a blessing of sorts. Meirav is a biblical name. She was one of the daughters of King Saul, but it's way less common in terms of like the biblical names that American Jews are given, like Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, like the matriarch names, which I think is a nice fit. Also, I know how connected you are to Israel, and Meirav is the name of a kibbutz in Israel. So I figured it was like a nice nod to your love of Israel, a blessing of abundance, and it has the M and the R sound that goes along with Margarita. So Meirav was the first suggestion that I came up with. The next one I came up with is Meira. It's one who illuminates. And I love this for you. I think it's such a solid fit. We hit the M and the R, the mem and the resh sounds, as well as the final A sound. So Meira, to me, is a nice name sound connection to Margarita, and one who illuminates. Hello, this podcast in and of itself, you bring Jewish voices to the forefront. Anytime I feel like I have any sort of interaction or conversation with you, it lights up my day. I always leave feeling like I'm a better person for having gotten to have a conversation with you. I think you always bring so much light to those around you. And again, I just think between your personality and your podcast and the amazing things you're doing, Meira is a really solid choice. If we're not loving the mem names, a similar kind of reasoning behind it, I also suggest Rinat. This means joy, and similar to Meira, I think it's a nice fit as well. It's closer of a fit to Rita, focusing on the R and the T sounds, but bringing joy, it has a similar meaning to Meira, which I think is a lot of the fit. I literally, every time I'm looking at your face right now and I'm lighting up. I just light up to get to interact with you. You're just such a happy person. And I thought Rinat was a nice fit for that. Okay. Also Rotem. So this is a modern Hebrew name. It's a type of desert plant. Hear me out. It's a beautiful desert plant that has white or purple flowers. And I think this is great because it's a nod to perseverance. No matter the desert climate, the Rotem blooms. I like this because I think it's a great balance for you between the snark and the sweet, which I think I've heard your stand-up. I just think is so spot on for you. Like the balance between the harshness of the desert and the beauty of the bloom. I love that here for you. And again, it has the R and the T sounds, which is a nice match for Rita. Okay. And here's my curveball. Bear with me.
These have been fantastic so far.
I'm so glad. I was so nervous because in your questionnaire, you were very specific about certain names we did not want, which is
like Margarita. I was like, please no.
No, which was so important. I actually love, one of my favorite things is when people tell me things they absolutely don't want, because I don't want to waste a suggestion on something that we already know somebody doesn't like or want.
Perfect.
Here's my curveball. It's a Yiddish name. So I don't know if that resonates with you. I'm not sure, but we're going to try. So the Yiddish name is Itta, and it's spelled Aleph, Tet, Aleph, and it stands for Alter Yomim Tovim Amen, which means long good days Amen. So it's essentially a blessing. And I love the fit because it's exactly the end sound of Margarita. We have ITA is how you would spell it in English. And it's a blessing. All it would do is wishing you so many good days ahead. The intention would be to ward off evil spirits and grant a long, healthy life. The positive outlook and well wishes here, I just had to include it as a little bit of a curveball, even though it's Yiddish and not Hebrew.
I love it. I got to think about, there are a couple of strong contenders, I think. So Rotem, I really like the meaning behind that one, but I know too many people named Rotem, and like they are not anything like me. So I feel like, I don't know. I just meet, when you meet someone with a certain name and you're like, that's not the vibe.
Margarita, I'm a teacher. You know how hard it was to name my children? It was like a list of children I've met over the years of like, nope, can't do this. Can't do that.
It's like some names are blacklisted.
Trust me, I hear you.
There's one that you also mentioned, Rinat, right?
Mm-hmm, Rinat.
So in Ukraine, Rinat Akhmetov is a very famous Ukrainian billionaire and like criminal and just like a very influential guy in Ukrainian and Russian politics.
That's so funny.
So it just has too strong of an association for me.
I'm Jamie Dimon. So Jamie Dimon, of Chase. I constantly get, Jamie Dimon of Chase, right? I'm like, not that he's a criminal, but he's a very wealthy person. And I'm like,
yeah.
I called once to make a reservation at a restaurant, and they asked me if that's who it was. And I asked if
it can be
when I get to their table. Like, just asking. I was like, well, no, it's not. All right. So we're not a good fit.
Which three are we down to now?
So we have Meirav, Meira, and Itta.
I think the one I like the best is Meira.
I do too. That, to me, that's the number one. To me, for you, that is the number one. It has the consonant sounds that we're looking for. I think the meaning is spot on. And I truly love and like think what you're doing with your podcast is amazing. And I think it's a nod to that as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'd be illuminating it. Okay. Or at least I'll try. I'll try to illuminate.
And, today's not the end all be all. You can sit on it and think about it. And I'd love your feedback and we can even keep workshopping it. But I do think it is a lovely fit.
I really like that name.
And consonant sound wise.
Thank you. This has been amazing and it gives me a lot to think about. Maybe I got to do a poll or something of the people.
What they think. I love that.
Yeah.
We should do a poll.
So the other thing I wanted to ask you about, and it feels very timely now, is because you're a Jewish educator and you've spanned everything from camps to synagogues, I feel like you meet a lot of Jewish people of all ages, throughout the congregation, especially Park Avenue. There's so much diversity. There's a really big Hebrew school where I used to teach. Thanks to you, you got me into teaching Hebrew school, which has been the most rewarding experience, I think, outside of doing this podcast. It's just amazing to help children be excited about biblical history. That was my whole goal. I was like, how do I make this fun? But anyway, because you meet so many people, I think you have a pulse on like the state of the Jews, at least within your own community. And as you reflect on everything that the Jewish people have been going through, is there any words of encouragement or any reflections that you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, I think people, it's interesting. It's this like balancing act. I think people are hurting. I don't think that that's any surprise or shock to anybody listening. But my work right now is at a synagogue doing young family education programming, and people are coming out in droves. So as far as like the pulse on the community, I guess it probably also depends on where you're living. But what I'm finding is that people so desperately want to feel connected to Judaism, again, whatever that means for them, right? Everybody has like their connection, whether it's to Israel or, like you said, to the Bible stories or modern Jewish history, the holidays, whatever it is. It's not like a one size fits all thing, but people are coming out in droves to want to be together, to feel like part of the Jewish community. I mean, and as a Jewish educator, I will say it's a hard thing to say, a silver lining, but it's bringing people closer together. Words of hope. I mean, I work with our youngest learners, so it's really families with children newborn through 5, and the children get so much out of it. They love being in the synagogue, and even just running around being with each other. The relationship building piece is so big, but it's also for their parents, right? To find comfort and joy watching their children do something Jewish, helping to facilitate doing something Jewish with their children. So like, do I have my anxieties and fears? Absolutely. But like, for the continuity of the Jewish people, like, we are strong. We are here. We're not going anywhere. Am Yisrael Chai, like till the end of forever here. And I see it as really as hopeful. And every time I have a program and I leave while I'm exhausted, I feel so uplifted just knowing that these people chose to spend their Sunday morning at a Passover art workshop rather than, it was a beautiful day. They could have gone to the park. They could have had a play date, but they chose to spend their Sunday morning doing something Jewish. And that, to me, we're going to be okay.
And I think for better or for worse, what happened on October 7th really made Jewish people who were otherwise not engaged in the community realize, wait, hold on a second. I'm part of this group of people. This group of people is under a lot of scrutiny. What does this even mean? Like, what am I part of? How do I belong here? What's going on?
I agree. I think people had to take a deep look, right? Also at their friendships, about how other people were responding and things that were being said on social media, and it's like, well, it's a moment of like values clarification. And for some people who maybe it wasn't a priority or not as important for, it struck a nerve, right? I think people got comfortable in the diaspora of, we're okay here, especially in America, right? Like we're okay. Things are a little scary. I'm not going to lie, right? Like I commute, I go through Grand Central every day. I work in a synagogue. My child is in Jewish preschool. I'm a Jewish mom. I'm full of worries, right? On a good day, on a normal year. I used to play this game in my head, which is not a normal thing to do, of like, who would hide me or who would take my children? And this is like, I think, generational trauma, right? And so I think a lot of people, and friends of mine, especially ones that have like little kids, we got nervous of like, who would take my children if we needed to go? Which of my secular, non-Jewish friends would take my kids? So I think like if that's what you're starting to think about, a little bit in the background, then you're taking a pause and thinking like, what community am I hanging out with, right? Like, what does my Judaism mean to me? Am I taking my mezuzah down or putting an Israeli flag poster in my front yard? Like, you have to make a decision.
I have thought about this for months on end too, because this is probably the third podcast episode where this comes up of like, what's our obligation? What is the right thing to do? Is it to be discreet? Is it to be outspoken and fight back? And time again, like I know where I stand, but I cannot imagine judging anybody or not respecting someone's alternative viewpoint on that because it's just so personal. And something that I was thinking about, I was on the train the other day and a disgruntled woman entered the train car right as it closed. And I don't know if she was on drugs or just unwell, but she started yelling at all of us in the train car as if she saw something or, she was having a mental breakdown. She was paranoid about something. And so she had bags on her and she started coming up very close to people in the train car and throwing her bags around. She was clearly intending to be violent. And so as a, seasoned veteran of these kinds of events, my position is always, I'm moving to the train car over. Like, I do not need to be a witness or a bystander or a spectator of someone's meltdown. I'm going to get myself out of there. So I very easily and quickly moved to the next train car over, but there's glass. So you could see what was going on in the train car that I just left. Nobody else left except for me. And when I was leaving the train car, these young teenage boys opened the door for me because they could see that I was trying to get out. And the whole train car next to where I originally started was like witnessing what was going on. And this woman pulled the emergency brake on the PATH train on the stop that is 10 minutes long from Manhattan to New Jersey, where we're underwater, we're under the river, and there's no self-service. And she pulled the emergency brake, so we're stuck under there with no service. But there are staff of the train, and one of the staff members happened to be on the train car that she came on. Ironically, I was on that train car because I'm like, oh, there's a staff member. Like nothing's ever going to happen on the train car where there's a staff member. And of course, that's where the woman got on. And for reference, I've never had issues on the train, on the PATH train, anything regarding to safety. And I could see how scared all of the people were in the train car over, like in the new train car that I'm in. They were so scared of her and like, what is she going to do? Like even men, I could see were very concerned. And I just looked at all of these people and I'm like, we can take her down so easily. We could easily kick her ass. Like there's so many of us and she's already like unwell. She's not going to be able to fight back. Like there are so many men on this train car. Like it is very, very easy to defend yourself in this scenario. Like it's not going to take much. And once one person has the bravery to step up and like, retaliate and whatever, fight back, everybody else, it's like a mass effect where everybody joins in to like save themselves on this train car. Nothing happened, nothing escalated because she didn't do anything. She was just like yelling. But that is always my mentality with Jewish people. Like we are so much stronger than we think because all it takes is one person to step up and the rest of us, the community, is going to follow and back them up. But I realize that not everybody feels this way. Not everyone has the courage to take the leap.
I mean, I think it's scary. I think, first of all, I would be terrified if I was in your situation. I've lived in New York for over 18 years. So there's just moments on the subway, the PATH train, whatever, that are uncomfortable. And also, I think the world has gone nuts outside of October 7th and like the current climate with, Israel and Jews and anti-Semitism. I think there's so much more to it. And I pick my daughter up from school. We go to the grocery store and we have to do a mitzvah and we have to say a bracha and she's singing songs for Pesach. And I'm thinking like, there's nothing more that I love than watching my daughter love being Jewish. And we're living in a time where at the grocery store, it's a little, on Long Island, even still, makes me a little nervous. And I would not tell her, stop singing, but that's me. And I would not balk or judge or think twice for somebody who said, we're going to sing when we get back in the car. I would totally understand that. I think it's hard. I think everybody has to do what's right for them. But I agree with you. I think that this is not, the stereotype of like the weak Jew anymore, right? Like time and time again. We come together as a community. And I think we've stood up for so many people, throughout the years, throughout the different movements. And I think what's surprising to people at this point is that how non-reciprocated it is. And I think especially for liberal Jews, it's been very, very hard to see that.
Yeah, there's just a lot to think about too, because a part of me is always like, you know what, if we stop singing the prayers out in public, or if we stop wearing our Star of Davids, or if we take our mezuzahs down, they won. 100%. That's literally what they want. So it's tough. And I do think ultimately, no matter what, we will prevail, we will persevere, and even in these trying times. And, something I wanted to talk to you about, I don't think I've ever shared this with you, and I've also haven't talked about this publicly, but just my experience being a Hebrew school teacher. So when I worked at Park Avenue Synagogue, it's a conservative synagogue, and there things are pretty straightforward. But when I moved to Philadelphia for grad school, I taught at I think it's considered Reconstructionist synagogue. So there were a lot of multi-faith couples there with children and people that had very different views on Israel and on Judaism. And so I had students of varying backgrounds, of varying ethnicities other than Jewish, and just of varying degrees of understanding what's going on with the Jewish people in the land of Israel. And so to me, it felt like a real opportunity to help them learn how to think critically so that they ultimately could decide where they stand on things themselves. And I taught 3rd through 6th grade. And of course, I had to have different programming for every grade based on the maturity level. But one of the things that really stuck with me was I did an exercise with the 6th graders. It's a common game. Like you see this on TikTok all the time. You essentially assign one room as strongly agree, and then the other side of the room as strongly disagree, and then different points in the room of agree, disagree, or neutral. And so I would ask them things like, I think the land of Israel is important for the Jewish people, and in front of each other, make them go to whatever part of the room they felt resonated with them, whether that be agree, disagree, whatever else. And I had quite a few students who very easily went to strongly disagree and said, to me, Jewish people are all over the world. I don't see a reason why we need to have our own country in order to preserve our faith. Here I am, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, being proudly Jewish. And in that moment, I had to realize, this comes from the home. This comes from their upbringing. It's not okay for me to try to persuade them differently. So the position I always took is both sides shared. And I said, ultimately, the decision is yours. Here's what I would add to each of those arguments. They're both valid arguments. You're entitled to those opinions. But I had to be almost impartial because I felt that that was most fair to their education. And if I so strongly held my viewpoint, I probably shouldn't have been teaching there. So it was a real lesson for me on being a good teacher and helping these kids to think. And one of the other highlights I had teaching, this was like my favorite lesson. So Hebrew school, for anyone who has gone through it, which ironically I have not, I didn't even have a bat mitzvah. I declined. I was like, I'm not going to sit in class and pay money for it. Are you kidding me? I just want the party. But that's not how that works. So I opted out from Hebrew school and this bat mitzvah. But Hebrew school is not known to be particularly fun. It's not a fun place. It's boring. You have to do it in addition to regular school. So I was always trying to be fun, play games, make it more interesting. And so I played a lot of videos in class. I was allowed to do so. And there's so many good videos and resources out there. A side tangent, my students had never seen Prince of Egypt. And right around Passover, I played them little excerpts. And at first they were like, what's this old cartoon? Ew. And by the 3rd video, they were like, well, how's it going to end? How's it going to end? And I'm like, you're going to have to go home and pull it up on Netflix or go read up or ask your parents or whatever else. But I'm not spoiling the ending for you. Or maybe you'll just have to come back next class and see what happens. But the cool thing about Prince of Egypt is I also got to point out the inaccuracies because some of those things in that cartoon don't follow what we believe in the Torah or Talmud or whatever else. But going back to my original point here, one of the things I did in class is I found this conspiracy theory video. Can't find it anymore. I'm super bummed about this. This was such a good video. It was created by some Christian organization. The conspiracy theory video claimed that Mount Sinai was not in Egypt, but in Saudi Arabia, and that they have very definitive proof that this is the case by laying out these XYZ facts, interviewing these people who all claim that they've known for generations, according to the text, that this like indigenous group of people in Saudi Arabia knew that it was Mount Sinai there, all this proof. And so I made them watch this video, and then I just asked them, what do you think? They're like, well, this fact is kind of strong, but this doesn't seem to make sense. And how would they have crossed here? Like, where's the body of water there? They're thinking about it like very logistically. And I just paused. I said, doesn't matter. Does it matter? Right. What is the lesson about Mount Sinai here? What is the point of all of this? Do these things even matter? Or is it what we conclude, the moral of the story that we need to take away and preserve? And they were like, wow, we didn't think about it like that. Yeah, maybe it doesn't matter. What matters more is that we had this 40 years where we were supposed to get it together as a Jewish people, preserve our religion using the tabernacle, all of these things. And we could have been, in Thailand for all it mattered. We're still going to end up in Israel one way or the other.
First of all, I would have loved to have been in your Hebrew school class. I didn't go to Hebrew school.
Thanks.
School, but if I did, that sounds like a great one to be in. And I do think like one of the most common questions asked in Hebrew school is, did this really happen? And I think you hit it right on the head, right? Like it doesn't matter, right? Some Jews would say yes, some Jews would say no, but this Jew is saying it doesn't matter, because just like you're saying, what do we learn from it? How do we become a better person because of it? How did it get us to where we are today? And how is it going to influence about how we're going to live for tomorrow?
Yeah. So I guess now I don't teach as much because I'm too busy running the podcast and with my job. Sometimes I drop in at a synagogue in Hoboken and I sub, but very rarely. I've only gone once because I can never go when they ask me. I always have something going on. But I do hope that post-October 7th, our Hebrew school educators jump on the opportunity, seize the day to really elevate the level of rigor and the learning for these children.
100%. I think people underestimate kids also, which having worked, with Herzl, I just think like working at Herzl was my first, besides like helping out at the Hebrew school where I grew up, was really my first like opportunity to like really work with Jewish children. And people underestimate kids right and left, right? Given the opportunity to have those like deep conversations and thoughts and opinions, like my favorite thing to do is a kid asks me a tough question. They're not asking because they really care what my opinion is. They want to talk about it, right? So, does God exist? That's such a good question. What do you think? And like the answers you get from these kids, like you're saying, even starting in third grade, they're amazing. Children are amazing, and people often underestimate them.
One of my favorite kids in Hebrew school was this kid named Ezra. Now, Ezra is a twin, and so him and his twin sister were both in my class because they're the same age. And it's a small school, so it's not like there are multiple teachers. It's just me. And Ezra was so funny. All the kids are chatty, they don't want to listen. So whenever we do like a sharing circle or whatever where certain students speak, other students would chat. And he would, whenever he'd share and somebody was talking over him on the side, he'd pause and go, I'll wait. I'll wait.
It sounds like Ezra's going to end up a teacher, if you want mine.
Yeah. I was always cracking up. He's so funny.
Very cute.
He's like, I'm not finished speaking. How dare you? Yeah. So it's a real privilege to spend time with these kids and also learn from them, because there's so many things that they say so matter-of-factly, like so simple that you're just like, you know what? You got a point there, buddy.
And we lose that as we grow up.
Yeah, right? We do. And the outspokenness we lose as well. The audacity to say some of these things out loud, not just think them.
Oh, I've heard some of the things you say.
Well, yes, that's true. I do think I hold back more now with age, like just the maturity of being less direct and matter of fact about certain things. But all of my childhood tapes, it's just like this 4-year-old who takes himself so seriously. I was an adult, okay, at 4 years old. At least I thought so.
But I think it goes full circle, because you'll hit an age again where you just will give 0 Fs and you'll just say whatever you want again. So you can bookend it like that.
Yeah. For sure. Okay, this has been amazing. I'm so excited about my Hebrew name and the fact that you, of all people, helped me choose it, because you've seen me through my childhood well into adulthood, and we've been able to keep in touch for so many years. It's got to be like 12 to 15 years for
It's
sure.
like 15 years, I think.
Yeah, 15.
I was thinking about it today.
Yes, 15 years, because I started camp when I was 12 years old. You've known me a lot longer than many people in my life.
And I've liked all the stages. I don't remember
Thank you.
Super awkward. I just thought you were adorable as a kid. But I mean, it's an honor, honestly. And I hope that, you're happy with the era. I hope we try it on for size.
Yes. No, it's amazing. And with that, I want to ask if there are people listening to this who have someone they want to name with a Hebrew name, or are like me and want to pick a Hebrew name for the first time in their life, how can they connect with you?
That's great. Yes. So anyone who's looking for any Hebrew name help, you can find me on Instagram at Hebrew name help. That's the easiest way. You can find my website from there. Send me a DM. Happy to help.
Awesome. And last question for you. It's one that I ask every single guest of the podcast. Who would you like to nominate for People Jew Want to Know?
It's such a good question. There's so many amazing people. I think the name that pops up right off the top of my head would be Joni Leeds. She's an amazing musician. She's a Grammy award-winning musician. She does, secular and Jewish music, and she really she stands up for all the causes, especially Israel these days. And she's so talented and so kind, and I think she has so many interesting things to say and would be a lovely guest for you.
Thank you, Jamie. And this has been amazing. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always fun to get to spend time with you, and such an honor to be a guest on your podcast.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, please go ahead and rate us 5 stars. Be the first to hear our episodes by subscribing to People Jew Want to Know wherever you get your podcasts. And for exclusive content, follow us on Instagram at People Jew Want to Know.